You're no longer an employee? What? What do you mean? You're fired? For 20 years, I worked at the company run by my in-laws. One day my husband dismissively told me I was fired. After my father-in-law passed away, it was said that it was because Catherine would take over the company. Wait. Even if Catherine takes over, don't we still need someone to handle accounting? Catherine's boyfriend is apparently going to handle that. So you're no longer needed. That's unbelievable. While I was in shock, Catherine smugly said to me, "You should know your place, especially when you're so arrogant despite being an outsider. Enjoy your jobless life from now on, LOL." When Catherine returned, I felt not only left out as a family member but also unappreciated for the 20 years of dedication to the company. All my efforts seemed in vain. My father-in-law never openly praised me, but if he believed my suggestions benefited the company, he would adopt them. But with Catherine, who seems to see me as an enemy, at the helm, things probably won't be the same. I no longer have any attachment to such a company. All right then. I hope you all work hard for the company's survival. I told Robert and the others and decided to part ways with the company. My name is Emily. I've always been good at managing money, studied accounting in college, and was hired as an accountant at a major company. It was when I got accustomed to the job that I met Robert, who was younger than me. We met at a bar, and he shared that he was helping out with his parents' recycling business. Talking to Robert, who was different from my career-driven colleagues and a bit indecisive, felt new. Robert seemed to take a liking to me, and we exchanged contact information, starting to go out for drinks together. As we spent more time together, Robert began sharing about his family, particularly about his assertive sister, Catherine, who wouldn't settle for anything less than being the best. Catherine went to college and studied business. After that, she worked at a regular company. So she studied business but didn't help out with the family recycling business. She thinks the recycling business is too plain and can't boast about it to her friends. LOL. Well, Catherine has always done whatever she wanted. Although he sounded exasperated, Robert seemed to care deeply about Catherine. As we shared stories about our families, we grew closer. After dating for a while, Robert proposed to me. I couldn't imagine being apart from him and immediately said yes. I have a favor to ask, Emily. Once we're married, I want you to quit your current job and help with the family business. The recycling business? My mother has been handling accounting, but she hasn't really studied for it. You're an expert in that area, right? I want you to handle our finances. I had grown a bit tired of working for a large company, so the idea of working for a family-run business seemed appealing. I left my job at the major company. As soon as we got married, I started working as an accountant for Robert's father's company. Upon reviewing the books, I realized that my mother-in-law, who had no formal training in accounting, had made numerous mistakes. I began by cleaning up the records and overhauling the company's finances. Eventually, I understood the workings of the recycling business and identified areas where we could cut costs and boost sales. Robert, I have something I want to discuss with you. I decided to consult Robert about the cost-cutting and business plans I had been developing. Robert quickly skimmed through the materials I had prepared and gave me his thoughts. With this business plan, our sales should increase. I'll let Dad and Mom know about it too. My proposal was adopted, and to push forward the cost cuts and the new business plan, I began working tirelessly, even sacrificing sleep. Thanks to these efforts, the company's performance steadily improved, and we were able to hire new employees. As the company thrived, the locals started taking notice. I actively engaged with the community, and our business grew as a community-based store. Time flew by, and before I realized it, 20 years had passed since I joined the company. While the employees and locals grew fond of me, Robert and my in-laws seemed to take my dedication to the company for granted. "Emily dear, aren't you working too hard? Are you getting enough days off?" the local lady who lived nearby asked. But Robert just laughed. No, she's passionate about her work, so she's fine. Even if she gets a day off, she doesn't have any significant hobbies anyway. Haha. I've known about this company from the time of Robert's parents. But its growth is thanks to Emily, right? You should at least give her a big bonus. She's my wife, so she doesn't need a bonus. Living off the company's money is more than enough. Despite the concerns of those around me, I found fulfillment in my job and being involved with the community. I wasn't bothered by the lack of days off or bonuses. What concerned me was Robert's frequent night outs. "Robert, you seem to be going out a lot lately at night. Where are you going?" "Where?" "I'm working, expanding my network." "If it's for business, can't you do it during the day?" "Stop nagging. I have my way of doing things. You, just a mere accountant, should just stay quiet." "I see. But if there's any issue at work, please let me know." Yo, got it." Robert seemed annoyed and distanced himself more and more from home. One day, I received a phone call at home. It was from a warehouse of one of our business partners. "Emily, something terrible happened. Bob, who came to pick up the goods, suddenly collapsed." "What?" "My father-in-law, Bob, was rushed to the hospital, but due to the severity of his injury when he fell, he passed away." Mourning his sudden death, many from our business partners and the community attended the funeral. After a long time, I saw Catherine, who had moved out after getting a job. Catherine was taken aback by the grand funeral. This company seemed like it could go under any time. When did it grow so big? It's all thanks to Emily. She turned the company around, increased the profit margin, and expanded the business. And when profits increased, she suggested redistributing it to us, which boosted our morale. Seeing Emily work hard inspires us to do the same. What's so great about slightly improving the performance of such a small company? Catherine seemed upset that the employees were praising Moo and not paying attention to her. Whenever Catherine saw me, she treated me like a servant. "Emily, I'm a bit thirsty. Could you get me a cold drink?" "Sure, I can make tea if you'd like." I said I want something cold. "You might not understand since you've worked in a small company, but in big companies, the boss's word is absolute. I don't think you are my boss though. Don't nitpick. In our family hierarchy, I am above you." After the funeral, Catherine called Robert and my mother-in-law into a room. "Robert, Mom, I'd like to discuss our future as a family. Please come." She glanced at me, who was standing next to Robert, and said coldly, "This is a family discussion, so Emily, you're not welcomed." Leaving me stunned, Catherine led Robert and her mother into another room. An hour later, Robert came out and casually told me, "I've decided to hand over the company to my sister." Wait, what? It seems that the topic of the family discussion was about who would take over the company after their father. Robert, who wasn't assertive enough to be at the top, was reluctant to become the CEO, and their mother also didn't want to be at the forefront. So, Catherine stepped up. Seeing the reluctance of Robert and their mother, Catherine declared that she would be happy to become the CEO. They gratefully accepted her proposal. But Catherine has never been involved in this company. Is that okay? Again with the annoying comments. Stay out of family matters. I fought on family too, and I've been dedicated to this company. You're no longer an employee. What? What do you mean? You're fired? Wait, even if Catherine takes over, someone will still need to handle accounting, right? Catherine's boyfriend is apparently going to handle it. So, we don't need you anymore. This is unbelievable. You should know your place, miss. Praised by others. Enjoy your unemployed life. When Catherine returned, I was not only treated as an outsider in the family, but also had my 2-decade dedication to the company treated as if it was nothing, and my job was taken away. The struggles and efforts felt worthless. Although my father-in-law never openly praised me, he always considered my suggestions beneficial for the company. With Catherine, who sees me as an enemy, at the top, that won't happen. I have no more attachment to such a company. Okay then. Good luck with the business. I decided to part ways with the company and started a home life after seeing Robert off. However, a few months later, Catherine and Robert came to our house. Catherine, what's going on? What do you mean what's going on? Our company's performance has been deteriorating ever since you left. You didn't hand over properly, did you? What? I did the minimum handover. Why do you think the performance dropped? Have you been reviewing the monthly expenses? You have to properly calculate the difference between revenue and expenses, or else you'll be in the red. I've always been doing that. I studied management. Unlike you, isn't the fundamental problem with the way the business is being run. Even if everything else is in place, if you're going to say that, then tell us what you've done. As I remained silent, Robert spoke impatiently. Emily must be getting bored just staying at home. If you help out the company, I can give you some allowance, so come back. Despite ruthlessly driving me away before, his sudden shift in attitude, wanting to call me back as the business becomes precarious, leaves me dumbfounded. I decline. I don't wish to return to that company anymore. Hearing my words, Catherine flares up. What? Despite being a full-time housewife, how dare you refuse like that? Do you not care about our family's company? You're the one who doesn't care about the company. I'm the CEO now. How am I not caring about the company? Weren't you the one who originally said the company was plain and boring? You only took on the role because the title female CEO sounded cool and you could brag about it. Don't act so high and mighty. What are you basing those accusations on? Your boyfriend, Zach, told me during the handover. So what? No matter the reason. I saved the company when there was no successor. Saved the company. I believe the current downturn is due to you. Catherine? What do you mean? While I'm at home during the day, I often hear gossip from the regular customers from the neighborhood. They've seen you with Zach out shopping and even traveling during work hours. That was for business trips. In the 20 years I worked there, I never once saw an accountant go on a business trip. Can you tell me specifically which clients you were meeting with? Why should I tell you? You don't work for us. Your boyfriend Zach is quite talkative. During the handover, he boasted about how he could travel and shop using the company's money now that his girlfriend is the CEO. Catherine's face contorts in anger. Zach, he's such a blabbermouth. Employees won't follow a CEO who appoints her boyfriend as the accountant and misuses the company's funds. Isn't the problem with the actions of you and your boyfriend? My words make Robert glare at Catherine. Catherine, is this true? If it is, it's an embezzlement. It's not like that. She's just making things up. Then let's see the books. Zach seemed to lack knowledge in accounting, so he probably wouldn't know how to cover things up. I'm sure there's evidence of misuse, so he probably wouldn't know how to cover things up. I'm sure there's evidence of misuse. At this, Catherine turns pale. Seeing her reaction, Robert starts accusing her. Making you the CEO was a mistake. I'll report this to Mother and have you dismissed. No, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Catherine leaves in disgrace. The only one left, Robert, turns to me desperately. Emily, we need your help to save the company. Please come back. Like I said before, I have no intention of going back. But, don't we married? No. Our relationship as a married couple is over. I thrust the divorce papers at Robert. What are you saying? If you divorce without returning to work, you'll be the one in trouble. How do you plan to live? Don't worry about me. I showed Robert the employment notification from the major company I used to work at. After I was fired, I was on job hunt. I found out that a former colleague had moved to HR. She remembered my performance and recommended me for reemployment. That doesn't mean we need to divorce. No, there's a reason for the divorce. What? I had been worried about you coming home late since just before your father passed away. So, I had a detective agency investigate you these past months and found plenty of evidence of your affairs. I thrust out a photo of Robert meeting with an unknown woman. What is this? An affair is a valid reason for divorce, so I will be demanding alimony from you. With undeniable evidence in front of him. Robert had no choice but to agree to my terms and sign the divorce papers and the alimony agreement. With the two documents in hand, I packed up and left our home. Later on, Robert and his mother dismissed Catherine from her position, making Robert the president of the company. At the same time, they fired Zach and his mother took over the accounting as she used to. After being dismissed, Catherine tried to find another job, but her high expectations made it difficult. Apparently, she's now working part-time and seems to be the butt of jokes among her friends. It seems Zach was only with Catherine for her money. Once she started working part-time, he moved on to another woman and Catherine was quickly dumped. With Robert, who lacked leadership skills, and his mother, who had no knowledge in accounting, in charge, the company's performance only declined. Employees started to leave and the company eventually went bankrupt. Robert and his mother were drowned in debt. I heard Robert's mistress disappeared once she found out Robert was out of money. Robert, who had never worked for a company, could only find part-time jobs and struggled to pay off his debts. He even had to take care of his aging mother, who couldn't work even part-time, leading a difficult life. On the other hand, I regained my old skills and am working competently at the major company. My former colleagues appreciate my return, and I am rightfully rewarded for my hard work, being recognized and valued for my efforts. I've come to realize once again that the best place for me is where I'm needed. I vow to continue to work hard to meet the expectations of those around me.
My name is Emma. I currently work hard in a company that I co-founded with my friend, and I live with my husband John. John and I live in an apartment, but when my mother-in-law found out, she had some words to say to us. I think it's okay to live in an apartment if you're living alone. But if you're married, I'd like you to live in a proper place, like a condominium or a house. She seemed to imply that living in an apartment isn't a proper lifestyle. My mother-in-law has lived in a house built by her parents since she was born, and the house she currently lives in is the one she's lived in since she was a child. Maybe she thinks it doesn't take much effort to live in a house. Currently, the only things my in-laws have to pay for are property taxes and renovation fees. The rest is just utilities and various other living expenses. But we don't have much money to spend on those living expenses. Our financial situation is tighter than we thought, and we can't afford to move to a place that costs more than our current apartment. Even if you say just move, there are many expenses like moving company fees, cleaning fees, and down payments for the new place. Because we can't spend money on extra things, John and I have lived in an apartment the entire year since we got married. But my mother-in-law concerned about this, made comments like the above during New Year's when other relatives were around. Among the relatives, there were those who also lived in apartments, and they clearly looked displeased. One of the female relatives responded with a disapproving tone, "Excuse me." To that woman, she said, "No, I'm not saying apartments are bad. But it's embarrassing for me as a mother to see a decent child like John continue living in an apartment." My mother-in-law, who kept glancing at me, seemed to want to say that it's my fault Johnny's living in an apartment. My mother-in-law made those remarks in the kitchen, where the men were already having a drink, and only a few female relatives, myself, and my mother-in-law were present. It seemed like John didn't think that there was any animosity between my mother-in-law and me. We've been married for a year, and I've been so busy that I hardly had any chance to chat with my mother-in-law. I hadn't been sure whether we were on good terms or bad terms. However, from what she said, I instantly realized that she had no intention of getting along with me. The decision to live in an apartment was John's. "So, if you have any complaints, can you please address them to him?" I firmly stated, and then took the pot of rice I had just finished serving to the dining area. For a moment, she looked surprised, but then she frowned. Later on, when I returned to the kitchen, my mother-in-law glared at me. But perhaps she was cautioned by another female relative, as she didn't make further remarks to me. On the other hand, the other female relatives defended me by saying things like, "Living in an apartment is perfectly normal, everything is expensive nowadays, and buying a stand-alone house is not easy." Under different circumstances, John and I might have considered buying a house, but in our current situation, it's far from possible. When no other female relatives were around, my mother-in-law would start making sarcastic comments to me. "John is earning well, so the reason you can't afford a house is probably because someone is wasting money," she would say loud enough for me to hear. I decided to ignore her, thinking of it as her just mumbling to herself. No matter how you look at it, there's nothing wrong with living in an apartment, and I'm not the reason for our current situation. I shouldn't be blamed for our choice to live in an apartment by my mother-in-law. So, after the New Year gathering, I told Yoshi about what his mother had said. "Your mother told me she doesn't want us to live in an apartment forever. She said living in an apartment isn't considered a proper lifestyle," I said, to which John's eyes widened in surprise. "What? What kind of life does she expect us to lead then? It seems like she wants us to move to a condominium or live in a stand-alone house." John shrugged and said, "With our earnings, affording a condo or a house is like a distant dream. I wish my mom would stop daydreaming. She still thinks I'm some kind of genius. It seems that when John was younger, he was very smart and was always pampered and praised as a genius by his mother. When I was in elementary school, it seems that my mother-in-law used to brag about John to the neighbors, prompting them to compliment how smart and impressive he was. Perhaps my mother-in-law still clings to that feeling to this day. She had grown accustomed to having her son praised by others and continues to believe that she deserves such admiration. However, when one reaches middle school and high school, effort begins to play a pivotal role. John, having been spoiled, lacked the effort in his studies compared to his classmates, resulting in a decline in his test scores. As a consequence, even after graduating high school, he couldn't get into the university he aspired to and settled for his backup choice. Nevertheless, my mother-in-law still seems to believe that her son is a genius and that he continues to lead a superior life than others. What struck me, however, was that John never corrected her misconception. It's one thing if he were still a child in middle or high school and felt unable to refute a parent's praise. But now, John is an adult. Isn't he uncomfortable with being continuously labeled a genius when he earns below the average salary for his age? Hey, John, why don't you explain to your mother why we don't have money for a house? Huh? Why should I? Because your mother said it to me. She thinks we don't have money for a house because someone is spending recklessly. She assumes you're earning money and I'm spending all of it. Really? Maybe you're just overthinking and overinterpreting what my mom said? John sighed. That single gesture made it clear that he was reluctant to confront his mother about the truth. Even so, considering that his mother was making snide remarks about his wife, one would think he could at least caution her. But John didn't budge. There were other underlying issues, but from then on, I started harboring some resentment towards John. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law began to frequently visit our apartment. We had rarely seen each other before due to our busy schedules. However, after a tiring day at work, I would return to our apartment only to find my mother-in-law and John there, with John eagerly eating the dinner she had prepared. And then, the mother-in-law said to me as I came home tired, "Oh, you're just coming home now? Dinner time has already passed. Keeping your husband waiting while you're out having fun, you're failing as a wife." "You'll be skipping dinner tonight," she said arrogantly. I thought to myself, who is she to be so presumptuous when she's not even my own family? Despite her haughty remarks, she has never once contributed financially to our lives. Today, other than cooking for her son, she hasn't done a single thing for our family. Why should I, tired from work, have to be told by such a person that I'm to go without dinner? Enough is enough. What are you doing here? Going through someone else's fridge and using up their food without permission. I was in charge of cooking in our household. I had planned out the meals for the entire week in advance, making them cost-effective. Yet, most of the week's ingredients that were in the fridge have already been used up, even though we're just halfway through the week. The mother-in-law probably has no idea how hard I've been trying to save money. All the ingredients for the week were there, and now they're all used up. And you've even thrown away parts that could have been used. What were you thinking? Despite her saying I should skip dinner, the dinner table was filled with more food than her son could probably eat. Yet, without showing any remorse, she laughed and said, "Oh, you mean I threw away the usable parts, like the leafy parts? You were going to make my son eat that? Those parts are also valuable ingredients." As I confronted the mother-in-law, her son, who had been eating her food, said in a carefree manner, "Come on, she didn't mean any harm. Just let it go. Who does he think is the reason I've been trying so hard to save?" I was dumbfounded. Unintentionally, I blurted out, "What?" Perhaps realizing his words were thoughtless, he shrank back a bit. Seeing this, the mother-in-law said, "Excuse me, Emma. What's with that attitude towards your husband? I can't stand it anymore. You're not fit to be his wife. You probably waste all of his earnings by going out and having fun every day, don't you?" She said this based on her own assumptions. I go to work, not out to play. However, before I could retort, my mother-in-law spoke up. "You freeloading NEET, get out. Divorce, divorce." Mother-in-law's outburst made me frown, but as I glanced back and forth between her and my husband, realizing the extent of his apathy towards our relationship, I felt all my love for him evaporate. Whether he was afraid of being abandoned by mother-in-law or for some other reason, he would always ignore me whenever mother-in-law blamed me for everything. I had done so much for our life together, yet he would never defend me from her, let alone admit his own faults. The reason our life is so financially challenging is not just due to his meager earnings, but also because I've been paying off his debts to the tune of $1,300 every month. After allocating that $1,300 for his debt, the remaining money is barely enough for rent and living expenses, making it hard to save. That's why I had been trying so hard to save up. Although he earns a bit, he considers the $1,300 as borrowed from me and plans to pay me back gradually. But at this rate, he'll never be able to pay me back. I doubt he'll ever finish paying me back even when we're old. I wondered if there was any point in continuing this marriage, having to save and pay off his debts, especially when constantly berated by mother-in-law. Then it struck me. Maybe I should just leave him to his mother. Having made up my mind, I nodded. All right. Oh, how wonderful, John. Now you won't have to deal with that troublesome wife anymore. Mother-in-law joyfully clasped her hands together, while John looked bewildered. And for good reason. All this time, I had been the one paying off the debts he incurred. If I were to accept the divorce, he would lose the person paying for him. However, ignoring John's gaze, I began to pack my things. I figured Linda would make John fill out the divorce papers. I stuffed my valuables into my bag. I'll come to pick up the rest of my stuff later. If anything's missing, I'll sue. With that, I left the house. Immediately after, I received a message from John online saying, "What should I do about repaying the debt?" I couldn't help but laugh. Rather than worrying about his wife who was kicked out after being told to get a divorce, he seemed more concerned about his debt. He really was a hopeless man. I might need to be grateful to my mother-in-law for pushing me to get divorced before he drained all my money. But I worried that if things stayed this way, John might not want to let go of me, who was repaying his debt. So, I replied, "You know, if your mother was so insistent on us getting a divorce, she must believe she can support you even if I'm gone." Wait, by support, you mean she's going to repay my debt? Maybe. I don't know much about your mother, but if she's calling me a freeloader, she must have money, right? Then I'll ask her to pay you back for me too. I was relieved that he didn't forget about repaying me. If he had, I would have had to involve a lawyer and negotiate. In reality, with so much debt to pay, the savings we accumulated during our marriage wasn't much. I really needed him to pay me back as soon as possible. The longer he waited, the less likely he would want to pay. If that's the case, how about she pays me in one lump sum? If your mother finds out you're still connected to your ex-wife, it might become problematic, right? You're right. I'll talk to her. John readily agreed to my proposal. Thanks to that, he didn't cling to me and handed over the already filled-out divorce papers when I came to collect my things from the house. My mother-in-law watched me gather my belongings with a smug look on her face. When I finally said to my mother-in-law, "From now on, everything's on you." "Good luck," she laughed and replied, "From now on, John will be supporting me." What is there for me to worry about? She probably hasn't discussed money yet. I quickly left the apartment before my mother-in-law found out the truth. After staying at my parents' house for a while and finding a new place, I moved in. Just as I was enjoying my new life living alone, I got a call from my mother-in-law. I was so busy that I forgot to block her number. When I answered the phone, my mother-in-law sounded panicked. "I never heard of this." "What?" "A monthly repayment of $1,300. "Oh, didn't John inform you?" John had debts, and until now I've been repaying $1,300 every month. But since we're divorced, it's now your responsibility to pay that amount. I never agreed to pay anything. Since you pushed me out, both John and I assumed you'd be prepared to pay in my place. How much debt is there in total? Around $10,000 left. It was originally over $30,000. $30,000. I can't pay that back. Since she's a homemaker, she probably can't afford it. Perhaps she'll have to rely on her husband. I'm not sure who John will turn to for the money, but as long as I get repaid, I don't care whose money it is. By the way, I had made John promise before we got married that he'd repay any money I used for the debt. So, he owes me that amount too. What? So, you're saying he needs to come up with more than the original $30,000? That's impossible. I don't know about that. Please pay promptly. I can consult with a lawyer if necessary. When I took a firm stance, I could hear my mother-in-law crying on the other end of the line. I thought that with John earning well, and with you, Emma, the spender, gone, I'd be able to use a lot of John's money. This wasn't what I expected. It seems my mother-in-law planned to spend lavishly, thinking she'd benefit from her son's high income after getting rid of me. Looks like her plan backfired. Compared to John, I earn more, and John's salary is below average for his age, so his mother doesn't have the money to splurge. In fact, it might be more likely that she'll have to support John in the future. Since I've already divorced, please handle your family matters on your own. Goodbye. After saying that, I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. Since I wasn't sure if John and his mother would tell the truth, I took the initiative to inform his father about what had transpired. Apparently, he wasn't even aware that John and I had divorced. He did know about the debt John had racked up from gambling and was also aware that I had been repaying $1,300 monthly. He repeatedly apologized to me over the phone. His father immediately called in John and his mother and reprimanded them, saying, "What have you done?" Subsequently, he covered all the repayments to me. As for the remaining debt from gambling, he declared that under his supervision, John and his mother would work from morning till night, allocating their entire monthly salary for repayments. Consequently, John seems to have moved out of the apartment we shared and returned to his parents' home. In the neighborhood, he's now infamous as the foolish husband who, despite having me cover his debts, conspired with his mother to push me out. I heard he's been having a tough time. Recently, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice pleaded, it's me, Emma. Please get back together with me." To which I responded, "I'm not falling for a scam," and hung up. I promptly informed his father about this, and it seems John was no longer allowed to use his phone except for work-related calls. As for me, now free from the stifling life with John, I'm diligently working at my company. For the time being, I've decided to say that my job is my only love, refraining from romantic pursuits.
You are under arrest.
Late at night, when a police officer suddenly told me this, I was shocked.
You left your baby in a luggage locker, didn't you?
Flanked by 2 officers, I was about to be taken away in a rush, and my mind went blank. At that moment, from the back of the room, I could hear my baby crying. My daughter is here at home. The unexpected revelation seemed to confuse the police officer. What on earth is happening? I was surprised as the truth gradually began to reveal. At the time, I had no idea that this incident would change my life. My name is Jessica. I'm a 30-year-old certified public accountant. I've known my husband Harry since high school, and we got married 5 years ago. We struggled to have a baby for a long time, but I finally became pregnant and gave birth. Our beloved daughter Isla is 6 months old. She's very cute, as we have been waiting to be her parents for a long time. Every day I was immersed in the challenges of raising our first child. Isla is the first granddaughter for both our parents, so both families were ecstatic about having their first granddaughter. It felt wonderful to be blessed and celebrated by everyone. Both families got along peacefully and often gathered for various events and celebrations. If my husband and I had siblings, it might have been even livelier, but that wasn't the case. In reality, while my husband is an only child, I have a younger sister named Lily, who's 2 years younger. However, due to certain circumstances, we lost touch for a while. We were close when we were kids, but as we grew older, we began to argue more. Lily became resentful of me during our teenage years because I excelled academically and she struggled.
It's unfair. You're good at studying even though we have the same parents, and I'm not. It's not fair.
Saying things like that, there's nothing we can do about it, right? How about this? I'll teach you. Let's do it together.
Huh? What? Acting so superior. I hate your condescending attitude.
It was obvious her grades weren't good because she spent all her time on fashion and didn't study at all after coming back home from school. But to Lily, such logic didn't make sense. As Lily grew older, her hostility towards me became more blatant. She not only hurled abusive words at me, but she also tore up my neatly organized notebooks and slashed my favorite clothes. She seemed to do things just to trouble me.
Lily, this is just terrible.
Why do you always torment me? I haven't done anything to you, have I?
Just seeing your face makes me sick. Dad and Mom always tells me to look up to you. It's infuriating.
I was at a loss for how to handle her behavior. When I told our parents about her, they would warn her, but she would dismiss it and become more defiant, claiming they were always siding with me. Lily's mischief wasn't limited to the house either. She hung out with a bad crowd, shoplifting and extorting money from classmates. This caused our parents so much distress. A pivotal event occurred when I was in high school. Lily developed a crush on Harry, the first guy I ever dated, and tried to turn him against me by saying terrible things about me. Harry had been silent, not wanting to worry me about Lily's actions. However, as she always continued to hang out with him, he finally consulted me about it.
Look, I know Lily is your sister, and this is awkward to say, but she's been coming on to me and telling me that you have other boyfriends.
What?
Of course, I have no intention of dating Lily, and I assured her that you're not that kind of person. You might want to talk to her. She seems like she might do something terrible.
Hearing this, I was seething with anger. Unable to stay calm, I rushed home and confronted Lily, who was on her way upstairs. Harry told me everything. Why are you causing trouble for him? What's your motive?
I wanted to upset you.
So you tried to seduce Harry just for that?
Yes. Everyone's always on your side. It's so annoying. I wish you'd disappear from my life.
In her rage, Lily pushed me. For a moment, my body flew through the air and then I tumbled down the stairs. Intense pain shot through my leg and I couldn't move. I screamed for my mother, who was at home, and she rushed me to the hospital. In the end, I fractured my leg.
You always favored Jessica.
Lily, after receiving a severe scolding from our parents, angrily accused them of favoring me and stormed out of the house. From then on, she would occasionally come home to ask for money and continued to go out at nights, hopping from one friend's house to another and eventually dropping out of high school. Despite our parents' attempts to encourage her to find a job, she would claim that her part-time job was enough and always found a way to dodge responsibility. As Lily visited our family home, she ignored me even when she saw me. She didn't even attend my wedding with Harry. I wished for my only sister to be there for the ceremony, but she had blocked my calls. From then on, I hardly ever saw Lily. While I did miss her, I no longer had to deal with her constant harassment, and my life continued peacefully. The last time I saw my sister was about 7 months ago, in the middle of winter. When the intercom rang and I checked, there stood Lily in the cold. She looked miserable in a dirty t-shirt, tattered jeans, and messy hair. I was at a loss for words. "How did you find out where I live?"
Mom told me when I said I wanted to see you.
"I see. It's been a long time. What have you been up to? Come in, it's cold."
Huh? You're pregnant? I'll leave as soon as I'm done. I'll stay here.
At that time, I was about to give birth. Lily seemed to be on the verge of saying something, as she intently stared at my belly, but she suddenly shot me a sharp glare when she noticed Harry behind me.
As always, you're the lucky one, unlike me.
"What's wrong? What do you need?"
I need money. Just $2,000. Get it ready quickly.
The way my sister talked to me arrogantly is not the way you would ask someone for a favor. She probably asked our parents for money and was turned down. She must be desperate to come to me, since she hated me so much. "If you tell me what you need the money for, I'll think about it." At those words, Lily's eyes widened, and she suddenly swung her arm to hit me.
You! Acting all high and mighty again?
I tried to shield my belly in the moment, but Harry caught Lily's arm in time.
Stop it. Jessica's pregnant. She's carrying our baby.
It's always her who gets everything good. Enough!
As Lily was about to leave angrily, I quickly draped a coat that had been hung at the entrance over her and handed her the $300 in my wallet. Watching my departing sister mutter, "That's all?" I was overwhelmed with sadness. How did our hearts drift so far apart even though we were sisters? Sometime later, I gave birth to our baby. Hoping she would grow as pure and beautiful as a flower, I named her Isla. I was on maternity leave, busily yet joyfully immersed in child-rearing. I lost touch with Lily after that incident, always wondering about her, but unable to do anything since I didn't know where she was. As I was getting consumed by the challenges of raising my first child, a shocking incident occurred when Isla was 6 months old. It was a hot summer night when my husband was away on a business trip. Just after I had finally settled my crying daughter down to sleep, the intercom rang incessantly. Wondering what was happening, I looked at the intercom's camera to see 2 policemen with stern expressions.
You are under arrest for abandoning your baby in a luggage locker.
What? My daughter is right here in our house.
What?
At that exact moment, the crying sound of my daughter echoed from the back room, and the police officers exchanged astonishing looks. I had seen reports of infants being abandoned in luggage lockers on TV, but never imagined I'd be suspected of such a crime. Why do you think I did that? They showed me a photo, and the baby was wrapped in the coat I had given Lily 6 months ago. A gas bill receipt with my name and address was found in the pocket. What's going on? Did someone give that coat away? Or could it be that Lily had a baby and then abandoned her baby in a locker? Although I was not yet sure, I suspected Lily might be the mother and hesitantly asked the police, "What happened to the baby?" I was relieved to hear that the baby was safe and had been taken to a hospital. The locker was unlocked and the door was slightly open, so someone who was passing by noticed the baby crying and reported it. After explaining the situation to the police in detail, I was finally cleared of suspicion. However, the gaze of suspicion shifted towards Lily. Holding Isla, I headed to the hospital where the baby was admitted. In the hospital's baby bed, I saw a newborn, so young that the baby's eyes hadn't opened yet. I carefully observed, looking for any resemblance to Lily, but they were too small, their features indistinguishable. Nevertheless, it pained my heart to know a baby just 6 months younger than Isla had suffered so much. Poor thing, but I'm really glad that her life was saved. I did suspect that the child was Lily's, but without proof and unable to be in touch with her, the child was temporarily placed in an orphanage. My parents, my husband, and I couldn't leave it to the police and searched a lot for Lily, but we couldn't find her. After much discussion with my parents and my husband, we decided to raise Lily's baby by ourselves. The legal procedures were tough, but Olivia became our irreplaceable treasure as we raised her with love. A year later, Lily unexpectedly visited our home.
Sis, long time no see.
Lily, where have you been? We searched everywhere for you.
I have lots of friends, you know. Well, I spent more time staying with strangers, though.
Hearing this, I understood why we couldn't find her no matter how hard we tried. If she had been staying with strangers, it made sense.
So sis, can you lend me some money again? Whatever you have is fine.
I don't have much on me right now, and what are you going to use it for? Just then, from the opened door, we could see and hear children playing and laughing in the living room. My 2 daughters were happily playing with building blocks, and Lily watched them curiously.
Huh? There are 2 kids. Did you have twins? Hilarious. They look alike, but there's a considerable difference in size. Interesting.
The bigger one is Isla, the smaller one is Olivia. 2-year-old Isla is shyly peeping from behind the door, while 1-year-old Olivia is toddling towards me, saying,
"Mama."
She is such a cute baby, hugging my leg and rubbing her cheek against it. I pick up Olivia and show her face to Lily clearly. Do you recognize her?
Huh? Why would I? I didn't even know when you gave birth to them.
She's the baby you gave birth to. I named her Olivia. She has skin as beautiful as a cherry blossom, don't you think? She's a cheerful and adorable girl.
Ugh.
Lily grunts, her eyes widened. She bites her lip and stares intensely at Olivia. Her face turned pale, and I could see sweat forming on her forehead. Olivia, being shy after a moment of surprise, begins to cry. Startled by Olivia's cry, Lily mutters, "Huh?" and takes a step back, being confused. Although Olivia is her biological mother, she's a stranger to her.
That can't be true. That baby shouldn't be in this world. And how do you know I gave birth to her?
As Olivia was told about the gas bill that got mixed up in the coat she was wrapped in, she clicked her tongue in annoyance and, trying to hide her irritation, broke into laughter, holding her stomach.
That's funny. There's no proof that the child is mine. Are you stupid?
Lily became defiant. It seems her heart is a mess that there is no going back. There is proof. I have a certificate that proves that Olivia is your daughter. Also, I'm recording this conversation.
What?
Actually, I have sent the umbilical cord my mother kept of my sister and the hair of the baby from the hospital to a DNA testing facility to find out if the baby was my sister's. After a while, the result came back confirming that the baby was indeed my sister's.
You always meddle in things, don't you? I can't believe you tracked it back to that coat.
How could you leave your child in a locker? What you did is unbelievable.
Always acting so high and mighty. It's because you didn't give me money that I couldn't do anything about the baby. Because of that, I had to secretly give birth at my friend's apartment.
A year ago, I didn't understand why my sister suddenly came asking for $2,000, but now I know. If I had given her the money, this adorable child, Olivia, wouldn't be here right now. You always blame me for everything. Didn't you think of raising the child yourself?
It's not like I wanted a baby. I don't even know who her father is. Babies are just a nuisance, always crying. It was better to abandon her, right?
You're joking, right? We're talking about a precious life here. You committed a crime. The police are looking for you. You should confess your crimes to them. Lily, realizing the gravity of the situation, got even more pale and clung to me in desperation.
No! Please, let me go. Give me money so I can run away. Hurry!
You're so selfish. I won't give you any money. I no longer have a sister. Never appear in front of me and Olivia again. Just then, the police arrived and arrested my sister. I had immediately reported after confirming my sister's visit through the intercom camera. As she was taken away, she cried out saying,
"Help! Please let me go!"
I was very sad. Afterwards, my sister was imprisoned. The crime of abandoning and mistreating the life of a baby is a serious one, and it is unlikely that she'll be able to get out of prison for a long time. Even if she gets out, a miserable life awaits her, with no one to help out. Isla and Olivia are very close to each other and always play together. Every day, they bring happiness as they grow healthily and happily.
My name is Emily. I am a 30-year-old hairstylist and have just opened my own beauty salon. I had set a goal to open my own shop by the age of 30. I worked hard to save money and managed to acquire an affordable turnkey property. Although I could have taken out a loan, I grew up with no father after he disappeared due to debts and my mother struggling to pay them off. Because of this, I was determined never to take on any debt. I never imagined I would be saddled with my husband's debt of $3,000 a month. I was deceived. I met my husband, John, at a group date a year ago. He was an easygoing and an active guy who was quite popular, and I remember being a bit proud when we started dating. Perhaps because he has 2 older sisters, John was good at being spoiled yet dependable, and many said we were a great match. Moreover, despite working for a large corporation, John was frugal and great at saving money. We often showed off our money-saving techniques to each other, discovered cheap restaurants, and felt our lifestyles were perfectly aligned. When he proposed, I immediately accepted. Since both of us wanted to save money, we only took wedding photos and registered our marriage without a ceremony. Furthermore, I was so busy preparing for my salon's opening that I didn't have time to look for a new place to live. When John suggested, "Why don't we live with my parents for now? It'll be tough when you first open your shop," I jumped at the offer. His parents' home was a 2-story house, and they said the entire second floor would be ours. Although I had only met my father-in-law and mother-in-law once during a greeting, both seemed very nice, and I believed we could get along well. I even hoped that if we had a child, they might help look after our child. However, I was a bit concerned about my mother-in-law's overt affection for John. He was the youngest child, born after 2 daughters, and had secured a job at a good company, so she often boasted about him, saying, "John has always been smart and charming. I can't believe he's my son, it's too good to be true." My father-in-law, with his responsible demeanor, said, "I'm retiring this year, so I'm glad my son is settling down. I'm looking forward to enjoying my second chapter in life. And thus, our life living together began. But the first thing I wondered about was the rent and living expenses. Hey, how much should we pay your parents? Let me handle it. Can you give around $2,000 for now? $2,000. Isn't that a bit much for living together? Well, my dad's retiring, and in exchange, my mom will do the chores, so $2,000 seems reasonable, right? Then let's split it. I'll pay $1,000 and you pay $1,000. Upon hearing this, John seemed a bit uneasy. What's wrong? Actually, there's something I haven't told you. I have a debt. What? I didn't know that. How much do you owe? Well, about. Tell me now. I couldn't believe my husband had a debt. Being sensitive about debts, I pressured him for more information, and he finally confessed. It's around $200,000. Upon hearing this staggering amount, I was dumbfounded and impulsively grabbed his collar. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you before our wedding, but I knew you despised debts and didn't want to break up because of that. Seeing him tear up, I let go, holding back my anger. I decided to calm down and assess the situation. Why did you get into debt? I got hooked on horse racing for about a year and kept trying to recover my losses, but I've stopped now. John apologized profusely. I had believed he was as thrifty as me, but in reality, he just didn't have any money to spend. We had already registered our marriage, moved in with his parents, and updated our addresses. Thus, I had never considered the option of divorce at that point. So, I racked my brain, trying hard to figure out how to handle the situation. All right, I'll handle the debt repayment. John quickly looked up with tear-filled eyes, an expression of disbelief, but his eyes clearly conveyed his hope towards me. I hastily shook my head. Don't get it wrong. I just hate debts and want to repay them quickly and get rid of them. Yet the hope in John's eyes towards me did not fade. If it remained this way, I would just be repaying his debt for him. I had to offer something in return for taking on his debt. In return, you'll handle the rent and living expenses at your family's home. It's your own house, so you should be able to manage, right? John nodded vigorously, looking at me with appreciative eyes. When I learned about the repayment amount, it was calculated that it would take more than 3 years to repay the debt entirely at a rate of $1,000 a month. All right, let's repay the debt in 1 year. I made up my mind and planned to repay $3,000 a month. Considering having children, repaying the debt after 3 years would be too late. I had planned to hire a stylist for the beauty salon, but I thought I could save on labor costs by switching to hiring only an assistant. I might have a hectic schedule, but if I could leave the household chores to my mother-in-law, I believed I could focus on work. When I shared this plan, John nodded with sparkling eyes and began, Actually, there's something else I haven't told you. What he started talking about was his job. He had indeed joined a major company, but quit right after due to disagreements with his boss. Now he's under the care of a subcontractor company that favored him. Naturally, his salary was about half of what he earned at the previous company. He had kept this a secret from his friends and family out of embarrassment. Considering that he hid his debt and the fact that he had quit his job, I was shocked by how deceitful he had been. However, I thought it's pointless to bring it up now and reminded him, make sure you talk to your mother and ask for her cooperation. John nodded in agreement, and so John and I divided our roles and started our new life. However, contrary to what John had told me, my mother-in-law would wake me up early in the morning, urging, Emily, what about breakfast? You need to deal with the laundry too, or it won't dry itself. I almost blurted out, didn't you say you'd help with the chores? But since I often came home late, I had left the evening chores and dinner to my mother-in-law. So I thought she probably wanted me to at least handle the mornings. Reluctantly, I started waking up early to prepare breakfast and do the laundry. I figured my mother-in-law, as a woman and a mother herself, probably didn't find it amusing that I wasn't doing any housework. Despite taking on John's debts and facing unexpected hard work, I was spending my days feeling frustrated. My beauty salon closed at 8 p.m., but the assistant left at 7 p.m., so I had to handle the cleaning and preparations for the next day alone, returning home by 10 p.m. When I got home, my mother-in-law, already out of the bath, would be watching TV and say, "Please do the dishes." There would be dishes for 3 people and pots left in the kitchen. I would heat up dinner in the microwave, eat alone, and clean up everything. Sometimes laundry was also left for me, so I had to fold it to prevent wrinkles. In the mornings, I woke up at 5 a.m. to finish laundry, prepare breakfast, and left the house by 8 a.m. Since I was running the business alone, I had to leave by that time to get everything ready. On my day off Tuesdays, I thought I could rest, but my mother-in-law would say, "You're off today, right? Prepare dinner and lunch for your father-in-law. You have it easy every day, and please clean up too." Then she'd dress up and go out. I prepared lunch for my father-in-law, who had retired and stayed at home, and spent the day cleaning. My father-in-law seemed to have taken up using the computer as a hobby, spending his days looking at stocks. After continuing this hectic routine for 6 months, my health began to deteriorate. Unable to bear it any longer, I asked John, "You did talk to your mother about helping with the housework, right? After all, I'm repaying your debt." "Oh, yes, of course, but my mom has been doing housework all her life, so she might want you to pamper her a bit. You could at least help out a bit around the house. You can wash the dishes, can't you?" "Well, I would like to, but Mom says men shouldn't be in the kitchen and dislikes it when I do." Faced with such a statement, I couldn't assert myself strongly. I began to wonder if living together was a mistake. If we weren't living together, I could leave the housework to John, and I wouldn't be chased around cleaning a spacious house on holidays. One Sunday evening, due to overwork, I finally fainted from severe anemia at the salon. Fortunately, there were no customers and no reservations, so I decided to go to the hospital and head home early. However, on the way home, I saw something shocking. It was John, looking frustrated and holding a horse racing newspaper, coming out of the station. When John noticed me, he hid the newspaper behind his back and greeted me with a surprised look. I was taken aback. "Didn't you say you quit betting on horse races?" Being unwell, I lost my temper and scolded him loudly. "No, this isn't what it looks like. I found this," John lied blatantly. I was so furious, wondering whose fault it was that I was in this situation, and didn't speak a word to John on the way home. Even after returning home, our strained atmosphere made John's mother suspicious, and she talked to me while John was in the bath. "Emily, your salon is struggling, it's understandable, but taking it out on John is not right." "Excuse me, the salon is doing fine." "Don't lie, I've heard about the debt you took on to start it. You're struggling to pay it back, aren't you?" "What? I've never taken out a loan. Actually, it's John who is in debt. Despite that, you believe I'm struggling to repay a loan I took to start the business. John should have informed his parents about his debt. John is also contributing. That's why we said we don't need rent, but you could at least help with the chores, right? Wait, he hasn't been paying rent. What are you playing at? Is every business person like this? No, you're mistaken. It's John who is in debt." It seemed there were misconceptions about John's debt while I was unaware. I told her everything about John's debt, how I was paying $3,000 monthly, what I heard from John about living with his parents, his current low-paying job, and his past at a major company. However, she didn't believe a word I said. "It's not a lie. Just today, John was at the horse races." "What are you saying, Emily? John was at his part-time job today, working hard to repay your debt. Doubting your husband, what kind of wife are you?" She didn't listen to me at all and blindly believed everything her son said. "You've been using all of John's salary for debt repayment, not even giving him any allowance. It's pitiful. I can't help him out much either." She wept, pitying her son's circumstances. It seemed John was not only not paying rent or living expenses, but also receiving an allowance from his mother. "We've been talking about whether the marriage was a mistake. We didn't realize you were such a demonic daughter-in-law when we met you." I was about to say the same. However, it seemed anything I said would be considered a lie. When I was silent, John came out of the bath and asked lightly, "What happened?" I was so furious that I screamed, "How are you not ashamed of all the lies you tell?" His mother turned red and scolded me in front of John. "How dare you speak to my son like that? The big liar is you." John was bewildered, not understanding what had just occurred. "Ha, what? What happened?" he asked frantically and immediately hid behind his mother. I was furious and ashamed seeing him like that and shouted, "Just be clear. I have debts too, you know." At that, John stepped out and told me, "Let's talk upstairs. You're too agitated here." He then led me to the second floor. As we were ascending the stairs, the mother-in-law shouted at our backs, "Stop squandering my son's money. Get out of our house, you gold digger." Once we entered the room, John's first words were, "You're such a fool." As I was in disbelief, he continued nonchalantly, "If mom and dad say they don't need rent, then it's all good, right? More money for us to spend freely. You ruined my plans by being too honest. What about me and this situation? Well, your situation has more potential, you know? More persuasive. If you bear with it, thinking someday it will succeed, then there's value in investing money, isn't there?" I was astounded by John's cunning, but I no longer trusted him who only cared about his position. Moreover, despite claiming he had quit, he was still indulging in horse racing, showing no signs of remorse. This means there's a chance he might repeat the same mistakes. I couldn't see myself continuing our life together and said, "I want to break up." "John," he responded, "Fine, but I won't be paying any compensation or settling the debt. You've been living here for free." Although I never expected to pay the debt of $3,000, I just didn't want anything more to do with such a person. So I agreed. When we reported our divorce, the mother-in-law sighed with relief and muttered, "Now I can finally relax." On the moving day, while I was loading the truck with my belongings, I heard my mother-in-law's loud voice yell out, "You liar." Then John came rushing out of the entrance and pleaded towards me, "Emily, help me." She chased after him with fury. "If Emily leaves, the debt is gone, right? Why don't you at least pay the rent then? Why now? We didn't have to pay before, right? Your father lost all his retirement funds due to a failed investment. Now we can only rely on you." I noticed my father-in-law looking apologetically through the living room window. I knew he browsed investment sites on his computer, but it seems he failed as an amateur investor. They both might be overly ambitious, but John was begging, "I can't. I still have debt, and my salary is too low. Please spare me." And then he clung to me, "Emily, please reconsider. Please don't leave." He even prostrated himself. I was dumbfounded. My mother-in-law slapped John's back, yelling, "Stupid child. I shouldn't have given birth to you." Where had the elite proud son disappeared? Father-in-law slowly came out of the house and gave me a deep bow. "I apologize for the disturbance. I think I will sell this house. Please forgive my foolish family." "Dad, seriously? Where will we live if you sell the house?" He selfishly began to cry, and the mother-in-law collapsed in a fit of tears. They were pitiable, but after realizing how they had taken advantage of me, I felt relieved seeing their retribution. I hurriedly moved my belongings and left the scene. That was the last time I saw them. Rumor has it that they indeed sold the house and moved to a cheap apartment. The in-laws registered at a senior job center and started working part-time in their old age. John, monitored by his mother, couldn't go to his beloved horse races and was forced to take on odd jobs. Having worked continuously since our marriage, I believed it was only natural. Later on, my business at the beauty salon took off, and now it's thriving to the point where I can employ 2 stylists. I'm living fulfilling days. Recently, a hairstylist I met proposed going to Italy for training. I'm considering leaving the salon in the hands of the 2 stylists and taking up the offer. If I were still married, I wouldn't have this freedom. Every day, I find myself grateful for deciding to part ways back then. However, since the person accompanying me to Italy is a man, I have no idea how things might turn out.